Thank you all for coming here this morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order. As usual, let's start it with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to
to
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So let's start with the conflict of interest canvas. It's important that no member have a conflict of interest or anything that could be perceived to be a conflict of interest. So let me ask, and I'll start with you, Greg, do you have any conflict of interest that would stand in the way of you fairly judging this situation?
No, sir.
No. Jay, do you?
No.
Bill, do you?
No, sir.
I do not as well. Therefore, I believe that we are ready to go forward here. I would like to amend the agenda in respect to Mr. Potts' time. We have a bunch of administrative things and minutes to get to, but I'd like to move that we amend the agenda, and I'd like a second.
Second.
Thank you, Jay.
And that is to move the minutes after the case. Is
And
that
we'll
correct?
do the minutes afterwards. That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor of the amendment?
I.
Okay. And with that change, are there any suggested other changes, or can we approve the agenda?
Approve the agenda.
Okay.
Approve.
I've got a second from Bill, and any discussion? Then let's move forward to vote. The agenda is good. Say aye.
Aye. Agenda's good.
No abstentions. So let's move to new business. This is VAR 2025-01. It has to do with the property at 887 Sandpiper Drive Northwest. And Mr. Potts, you'll be sworn in so that we can accept your testimony. Kim, are you ready to do that?
Yeah, and I will be part of getting sworn in as well. And I also need to be sworn in.
Right.
And just so for everyone knows, I spoke to Mr. Potts, I believe it was on Friday morning, and let him know that there was only going to be 4 of you here and that a unanimous vote would be necessary, and he wanted to move forward with the case today. Please correct me if I'm wrong or if you change your mind since then.
Yeah.
So just want to put that on the record as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, raise your hand. So, have to know that you got the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Terrific. Thank you all. Ron, would you like to start with the staff report?
Yes, sir. All right, you have before you today an application submitted by Mr. Arthur Potts. He is requesting a 2.5-foot variance from the required 7.5-foot setback for the construction of a 13-foot by 27-foot open but roofed porch. And when I say open, the sides would be open, but the porch actually would be roofed. His intention is to bring to extend the porch to be even with the side of his home. Side of his home is 5 foot off the property line, and that's where the 2.5 feet came from. So the required setback is 7.5 feet. Porch will be located 5 feet off the property line.
Okay.
This property is located at 887 Sandpiper Bay Drive, slot 19 of that development. It's about 0.19 of an acre in size, which is about 8,100 square feet plus or minus. Property is identified by Brunswick County parcel ID number 227-0A019. Based on my research, it appears the Sandpiper Bay Golf Plantation development was recorded in the Brunswick County Register of Deeds sometime early April of 1999. It also appears the property was annexed into the town as what I call a General Assembly annexation. It was not something the town initiated, but it was initiated by the General Assembly. came in town limits on July 3rd of 2007. You have that information in your packet. So I'm just going to go to the facts that I put here. So the property is zoned MR3, contains a single-family detached home that is situated 5 feet from the property line. Side setback for the development when approved appeared to be 5 feet, and that's just based off looking at the plan that was approved. The property was placed in town limits in July 3rd of 2007 when property was legislatively annexed to the town. The side setback for the MR3 zoning district was 5 feet. The former UDO adopted in 2012 required a minimum 5-foot side setback. And the current UDO, which became effective in 2023, changed that minimum side setback to 7.5 feet. You've been given the dimensional requirements, some information on non-conforming structures and so forth on that. So I've had several conversations with Mr. Pott, a couple of conversations with Mr. Pott. I met him on his property. We talked about the case, and that's why he's before you today. I'm available for any questions, and I would like to enter our staff report into the record.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and I appreciate it's very complete. I appreciate Mr. Potts' attention to detail. With that, can we question to a report? I'm sorry?
I have a question for
Oh,
Ron.
certainly.
Report. Sorry. I noticed attachment 4 shows current, what you just described as a 7.5 foot setback, 7.5 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's attachment 5 and attachment 6,
Yes, sir.
both of which conflict with that, mentioning 5 feet.
Yes, that is
side setback.
so. Attachment 4 is the current code,
Yes.
and let me go back to my attachments here.
Thank
Attachment 5 was the UDO
Before.
pre-2023,
Okay.
and the attachment 6 was what I could find in the office here of the pre-2012 UDO standards, and both of those standards were at 5 feet.
Okay. Oh.
That was the intent of kind of show a little bit of history of how it worked.
Terrific. Mr. Potts, you've been sworn in. Would you like to go over your application? State your case.
Yes, I appreciate your time. I apologize for putting the cart before the horse here. This whole process of trying to build this, not knowing everything, and I tried the initial inquiry into getting the permit and everything was all related to the water runoff. And that's where I spent the majority of last year trying to go through that, getting a drawing for the property, getting an engineer to sign off on not only the drawing, but the water management process. That was very long and painstaking because trying to find someone to even look at it, and then the difference of opinion. My first initial contact with an engineering company, they said, well, they were familiar with Sandpiper Bay, and when I told them the square footage of the roof and everything, their initial right off the cuff comment was, you have to build a 30-foot trench, 2 feet wide, 2 feet deep. And I sort of questioned it. I just said, okay, fine. Let me look into some other stuff. I still have to get a contractor. Finally getting a contractor who was willing to build the property. I start that process. I find a cement contractor who's going to build the slab. I then start looking into the water management thing. Spent better part of 2 hours up at the EPA, finding out the different multiple methods of water management. Most of it is commercial related. And then I found out that I could use a rain garden. And that's what I went with, designed it, found this local engineer, Ed Bruner out of Ocean Isles, who looked over everything, took the calculations, approved everything, signed off on it, and then submitted the permit. And as soon as I submitted the permit, I then came back, found out, well, your back set is off. And I claim ignorance of not researching maybe more with the town on building codes, where I would have started that process first, because I know getting a variance is not a guarantee. Depending upon each situation is different. So the fact that it was changed, I'm hoping the board would look into the fact of allowing me to have it done to the original setback, which, because right now, my house is out of code. It's within the it's within the 7.5 foot. The project itself is very minimal as far as in design. I'm only looking at putting a shed roof off of the existing roof, post on there with an open slab. Main reason behind that was because without that, the heat buildup and solar gain that I get every year, because that is my master bedroom, is pretty severe. Very difficult to try to get any type of coolness in that room, let alone the windows that are there. So that's one of the reasons. Also, to be able to enjoy the better outdoors during the summertime and fall in light rains. Right now, we have a small 3-foot pedestal patio table. If it starts raining, even with a 6-foot umbrella underneath, we have very limited time before we ended up having to scurry, grab everything and run inside. So it's to be better to have a more outdoor living area that we can enjoy our property, which we had bought it for that. Very beautiful area, everything. And I'm just looking for the board to consider allowing me to go to the original building backside line and then pursue the project.
Let me start with you, Greg. Do you have any questions for Mr. Potts based on his submittal?
No, it appears you've been through the gauntlet here of trying to do the right thing. And
Yeah, I had said only because I lived in New Jersey and I built an addition on my house without a permit. And the building inspector came up and I had already put the slab down, put the brick walls around 3 sides of it, and framed it up, had a roof and everything. And he walked up and he goes, I could have you rip this whole thing down. And I go, yes, you do. And I pleaded in, stupidity and immaturity, and he allowed me to put it up. But I realized the dumbness and I didn't want to go through that again. No, it wasn't worth it. And really, I spent 30 some years in the building industry, but from a representative, I worked for Anderson Windows. So usually when I showed up at a house, if I got there, things were going south. People were mad, why doesn't this work and all that stuff. So I didn't want to do that. I don't mind. Following the rules is not that hard. It's just I didn't realize the steps involved. I said, I really put the cart before the horse. If I'd have known that this was really a sticking point, I would have started this first, then started the process of getting the permit. But I also still needed to get the drawing. I needed to get a survey. So there was other things that had to get done. And, the survey process wasn't that hard. Trying to get someone to draw up the actual addition, that was painstaking, trying to find somebody who would do it. So.
have there been any feedback from the neighbors that were notified
No.
about this?
No, the 2 neighbors that I spoke with Vicky yesterday or Monday, and she goes, I'm all for it. The other neighbor that was next to me, he lives in Trapp, Maryland. He's a dentist. This is just a secondary home. He owns property in Ocean Ridge. His son was coming down there and using it because he lives up in Raleigh, but he's decided to build a house he bought a house up on 904, so he doesn't even visit anymore. It's just some of his relatives, his cousins, or his sister come and use the house. So that house is pretty much empty, probably 10 months out of the year.
And can I add to that as well? So we had one email from the HOA president, and that was forwarded to me. It was sent to the chair, and the chair was forwarded to Kimberly. Kimberly forwarded to me. I talked to the HOA chair, or president, excuse me, and he was more or less just questioning if they were okay with it. At the 5 foot, why was the town's setback more than theirs? Basically, how does that process work? So he didn't say he was supported or not supported, just was more interested in why is there a difference and how does that impact the overall neighborhood?
Yeah, he was surprised when I told him about the whole thing. And his comment says, "You mean a lot of our houses are not in code?" I says, if they want to build exactly the same type structure or something on that area of the house, they're going to be going through the same process.
Yeah, and in essence, when the town chose to change that setback from 5 feet to 7.5 feet, any structure or home built that is 5 feet from the property line is non-conforming. It's existing non-conforming.
Yeah, if we didn't have like my next door neighbor, he has no structure out of his house. He just has a patio door that leads to a cement slab. Now, if I had that structure, I'd be looking at building a Carolina room. And with that being built, I wouldn't even be close to the 7.5 foot. I'd be well within inside of it. I already have an existing Carolina room, and I think on the pictures you'll see where what I'm trying to remove. One of the prior owners had put up an additional cement slab, which is going to be ripped out completely because I'm running the water garden the entire width of the back of my house over 42 feet, 4 feet out to help take on the water, putting up gutters the entire length of the roof to run the water down into that area.
And there's no one behind you because you're
No,
on the
I'm right on the golf course.
you're on the
yes.
golf course, and it's
And I'm well within the building. The HOA does not want anything built within 25 feet of the borderline. And I'm within, if you go 25 feet from there, I'm still another 10 feet shy of that or more.
no other question.
Yeah. When was your house built?
2004.
So it's been in compliance for 20 years, I
Yeah,
guess.
up to the time that variance was changed.
And then Ron, you said you may have some insight on why the
Yeah.
setback was changed.
Yeah, I was not here, just for clarity, I was not here in 2023 when that was decided, but it's my understanding through the UDO process, the rewrite of the UDO, that there was interest in increasing the setback just to provide additional space between buildings, between homes.
No safety reasons or.
I don't know that any were cited. I can only speculate, so I can't say, as a fact, but just
Density, maybe.
Jay, if it's
another way to control density as well. Yes.
if it's helpful to you, I was one of the public commenters on that. And the idea was that you increase public safety by maximizing the distance between the two properties. As they found out in Los Angeles, the closer properties are, you have things come off roofs and things like that that can cause damage to other structures. You need the ability to get between them for public safety, be it EMS, fire, or whatever. And, that was one of the contributory factors, I believe. I didn't vote on it, but I did speak in favor of it, to the town extending the setbacks.
But there was no grandfather given to existing structures.
I mean,
As Mr. Potts correctly stated, his property became a non-conforming structure, and there's quite a bit he can do without running afoul of that setback. But to the extent that there's a modification proposed that will impinge on that 7.5 foot setback, he's required to come and ask for variance or not pursue it.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, his property is vested. 5 foot, the home itself existing at 5 feet is vested. There's nothing that says, he can't continue living there. He doesn't have to do anything with it. It's just any expansions to that would have to comply with the standards as written in the code.
When Ron sent the letter to you, he outlined that there are four questions that you need to address,
Yes.
and wanted to know if we could get your opinions on those 4.
The first question was whether or not the land would actually be unusable. I mean, if I wasn't able to build the open porch, the backyard's still backyard. It still can be used. I just have to come up with another idea of what I'm going to be using it for. Unfortunately, the whole thing of the porch is to be able to get more of a year-round usage with an overhang, protecting me from the sun in the summertime, and light rains for usage on that regards. We'll have to come up with some other idea of how to do it, possibly doing a pergola somewhere else, but pergola or anything like that is not going to be a complete cover. Doing one of those metal buildings with glass around that I see throughout our property. We have 3 houses in the back, being said, that have the porch, which I have a picture of that shows what I'm actually just trying to copy. So without being able to build that, I'll have to try to come up with some other kind of coverage thing so I can get more usage out of the property instead of right now where unless it's a perfect day and there's no rain and the sun until the sun starts becoming an issue, we're able to go out and enjoy it.
Jay, any other questions?
No, that's fine.
We'll go through the 4 specific items
Right.
that are necessary for a variance to be approved at the conclusion of this. Bill, let me give the floor to you, please.
Okay. If you looked at, I realize that doing a 7.5-foot setback on this porch would put it in the middle of that window. If you looked at putting it to the other side of the window, which would be more than 7.5-foot setback, but it would at least not be conflicting. You wouldn't have to be here at all then.
From an appearance standpoint, that's my biggest issue with that, because now I have one window exposed, one window, and probably would be better part of 10 feet. Maybe that's 7 feet that I'm going to now have sun exposure. The whole reason behind it was to mitigate and reduce the amount of heat buildup that hits that wall through those windows. Those windows are a planned replacement at a future time. But from an appearance standpoint, talking to some people, showing people the design, I would think that, if I wanted to sell the house, someone walking around looking at the house, they're going to go, well, why didn't you extend that all the way to the end? Why did you stop it there? Yeah.
That's my only question.
So I appreciate the detail with which you've gone through this, and
Right.
my question is exactly the same as Bill's. I understand that the way you have this set up, you would be directly in line with the window, and you could avoid the entire variance issue by moving that roof line. It's about 1.5 feet based on my examination of what you submitted, and so that window would be exposed. There are, and you work for Anderson, so you know about renewal and all that. There are low E alternatives and also coatings that can be put on that glass to avoid the heat gain. I understand that if you were to move that roof in and avoid needing the variance, that you'd still have heat gain from the sun's exposure to that corner, but you would avoid running afoul of the 7.5-foot setback.
Yeah. Any kind of, and I appreciate your question on that, haven't been in the, any kind of coating like film to darken or prevent the ultraviolet ray transfer through there will create heat buildup and cause seal failure to the glass.
And
That I can guarantee.
Oh, well, actually, we did that to our sunroom and it worked perfectly.
Yeah, they've made the companies that do the glass filming have made major advancements in it. That was their initial issue when they first started that, is that it creates the UV rays that go through the glass are blocked. It creates heat buildup between the 2 panes of glass, and it gets to a point where the glass breaks, where the seal failure occurs. Most likely it'll create glass breakage. That's sort of a Band-Aid on a bigger issue, because the windows have pickleball framing. I mean, design. There's air leakage around the check rail and all that. But as I said, that was something later on. The other issue with doing a backset roof setup, I now have 3, maybe 4 feet of an exposed roof. Then I'm going to have water runoff. Now I got to put a 4-foot gutter up in order to channel that small amount of water coming off the roof there. If I choose not to put a gutter up, which is not a building code requirement, now I have water runoff that ends up eating away at the ground coverage outside that porch. And that was one of the things we had when we first bought the property, was that all the back roof areas, the side areas, had no gutter system, and there was a trench on the side of the house and in the back of the house.
Right.
And on the one side of the house, on the opposite side of the Carolina room, there was a 1.5 foot hole from the water running off of V. I ended up putting up gutters there and on 2 other areas in order to stop that.
Right. To your point, I'm looking at page 43 of our package, and this does clearly show that you already have a gutter system in place there on one side of the window with the downspout. And so when you say you'd need to put up gutters, you already have some gutters there, and I presume that when the roof is cut in, that gutter there at the corner will remain.
The gutter will remember that. So that's the other issue that we currently have, is that the Carolina room that was put in there. And let me see if I can, I don't know if it may address the, go back to, okay, where it shows the picture of my actual back of my house with the line. Okay. If you look at the corner of the Carolina room, this is what was done by the builder. They have one downspout. Between the downspout and the first part of the bump out is almost 30, is 20, about 20 some feet. You then have 3 turns, and then you have another 60-degree plus turn from the other side. So not being an expert on gutters, but understanding water runoff and water movement. Right now, my roof, any water coming off the Carolina room has to go down, make a 60-degree turn, and then make 3 more additional turns before it can then run 20 some feet to a single gutter. I can assure you the water doesn't do that. It overflows in that point, in that acute corner, and leaks. That's why you see that gutter system that I put down there to try to take off the water, because the water was actually running over the gutter from the Carolina room. So I'm trying, besides the livability aspect of the gain that I'm going to get from the thing, I'm also trying to correct other issues that have been there. I also know that all the roofing material was installed incorrectly. I've inspected the roof, and the first row of shingles were not done correctly. So I've been very fortunate. Plus, there's no tar paper underneath the shingles at the gutters.
So actually, if your property, did you say your property was built in 2004?
2004, yes.
Yeah, so you're coming up on a roof replacement anyway. This
But
this is perfect time.
the roof pitch, the roof is going, and I have a full-fledged drawing there. The roof is actually going to be starting parallel to the Carolina room roof. That's going to come across there, and that is going to be the top of the roof edge going out to the front of the porch. So that's going to cover all of that. And then I will have to get the porch roof covered, but I'm planning on ripping the rest of the roof off and tying it all so it's all one cohesive roof covering the entire roof. Because right now, if I didn't do that, or if it had been replaced, it would be a patch job.
Right, and
That I don't want.
I totally understand. This is exactly the right time for you to pursue this.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a snowball effect right now going on.
Are there, and that's the end of my questions. Any other questions, gentlemen? Yes, Greg.
Mr. Ron, everything else that Mr. Potts has done from the engineering runoff, is that all acceptable?
I have not reviewed those at this time.
So that's still
yeah.
up in
But
the
see,
air.
when I saw the site plan, then it was not compliant with the setback. That's where we reached out. And actually, he had requested a meeting. I think he met with one of our inspectors, or requested me. One of our inspectors went out when Mr. Potts wasn't home. On one of my Thursday visits, I had reached out to Mr. Potts and was able to. We spent a half hour at least on your property, Mr. Potts.
Yeah.
It was a good
Yeah,
conversation.
I had reached out to the building inspector group well back in the last year to go over everything and never got a response back from them.
So,
where I would have asked a different question, shown them the pictures, and never got a response. So I just sort of, continue moving on through other stuff. I mean, I know the building inspector is super busy. I understand that. It's just, it is what it is.
When it got to my queue and I realized that he had reached out, had a question about wanting to meet with someone, that's when I reached out to Mr. Potts. It took, I was even a week or two delayed on from the time I saw it before I was actually able to reach out. So, but I did not review it for stormwater and that at this time. So I wanted to make sure that this was approved
There
first.
should be a copy in there of Ed Bruner's sign off. He did the actual water runoff of the roof, the complete roof area. I'm allowed up to 45% development on my property with the addition, because I'm removing one big large section of concrete slab, actually both of them. So we have he's one continuous pad. I'll be at 34% of my property. So I'm well within the 45%. And then the garden area, which is 4 feet in depth, runs the entire width of the property. It's going to be rototilled 12 inches deep, backfilled up to 8. The rest of it is going to be mulch. The first foot is going to be gravel. Ed has done the calculation. I showed him that water runoff is, I think, number 12 or number 13 in the list of the EPA from the state as far as methods that is acceptable for water runoff. And his calculation said I'm well within that.
And all we'll need is just make sure that it's certified, stamped by his designer. We will take his designer's work and opinion as a certified and professional engineer or registered landscape architect. That'll be our review. They stamp it, make sure that it's stamped properly.
All right, before we get to wrap this up, I want to confirm we are okay on notice to property owners and our mailing certification, Kim.
Yes.
We've reviewed the address list. We have a very complete application, and I appreciate the care, Mr. Potts, with what you've gone through to try and make sure things like stormwater and the lights are taken care of. And yes, this is an
It's not an
incredibly
easy process.
complicated undertaking for something that on the surface would seem so simple. But I agree that this is the right time for you to pursue something like this. For us to approve this variance,
Yes.
there are, and folks, this is page 31 in your packet, there are 4 items that we need to ensure that we can attest to. The first one is that an unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. Second one is that the hardship would result from conditions that are peculiar to the property. Third is that the hardship did not result from actions taken by you. And the fourth one is that the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. And so, I'd like to canvass our group here in terms of, first of all, do you believe that if this variance were denied, that an unnecessary hardship would result to Mr. Potts?
I'll speak first. No, I don't think this is an unnecessary hardship, because you could build this, aesthetics aside, you could build this the right side of that window and not have to deal with a variance at all. Window that would be exposed could be shaded, could have a awning, could have anything to block sun if that's an issue. And the roof is being redone with any of this kind of porch proposal, the way it pitches and goes up further into the existing roof. So I don't see any problem with creating that either. Running off the water with the gutters on that particular portion of the roof, just like it had on the other parts. So I don't see that. So the other 3 don't, B, C, and D don't really apply.
Well, yeah, let's deal with them one by one. Jay, do you agree that there's an unnecessary hardship?
I'm conflicted. I don't like the issue about the heat buildup on the back of the house, and I understand that. It does give him the inability to use his property that that's there. Are there other ways to move around, such as an awning or something like that over that particular window? That's a possibility, but it also, does not make the house look like it should, in all honesty. It should match the roof line. So I'm kind of in the camp that is a hardship there on that.
Greg, what's your position on that?
I feel the same way. To not build the porch right to the roof line would make it look out of sync to me. There's no backyard. There's no people that are against this. So not allowing Mr. Potts to use his property to his betterment and enjoyment, I could see that.
And I have to respectfully disagree with you. I think Bill has raised a good point. Mr. Potts will be able to use his property. If he were to build a 13 by 24, roofed covered porch there, he could use his property. I understand that there might be a major cosmetic issue, but on balance, he would be conforming in all respects with the requirements of this town. And I have to tell you, not surprisingly from my position, I have tremendous respect for the people that run this town, and I believe that they created that setback expansion for a specific reason, or reasons, as the case may be. So, item A is a bit of a toss-up right now. Let's make sure that we have an overall consensus. Item B is the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property. Do folks believe that a hardship is created because of conditions that are peculiar to the property? Bill, I'll start with you again.
Okay. Well, I don't really see a hardship, so it's hard to say that's resulting from the property. The property exists in a non-conforming fashion today, and that's because of the change in the ordinance. But like I said, I don't see a hardship resulting, so I don't see how that applies.
Jay, what's your position on this?
Yeah, I don't see a hardship as it applies to the property itself, other than maybe is it southern facing? Is the back of your house on the southern face? Is that?
I get the afternoon sun, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing that reduces it, I do have a couple fairly large trees that do offer some shade relief, but it's at some point I get direct sun right into that whole entire area, from the kitchen area all the way to the edge of the property.
Greg, your position on this one?
No.
Okay. Item C, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property. Let me start with this one. I mean, the town changed the UDO. That was not Mr. Potts's issue. On the other hand, he lives here and has to live by the rules that the town promulgates. I would say that to the extent that there's any hardship here, this is not as a result of his action. It sort of comes with the dinner when the town changed the UDO, and I believe they had good reason. They made his property non-conforming. He can still utilize it, but to the extent that he makes modifications to it, he has to comply with the UDO. Bill, your position?
This is not a self-created hardship, obviously. So he meets that. But
Okay.
I totally agree.
Okay. Greg?
Yes.
Item 4, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, intent of the ordinance. Public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. Greg, let me start with you on this one.
Yes.
So you do think that the variance would allow him to be consistent with spirit and purpose?
Yes.
Jay, how about you?
No. The variance or the variance very explicit that it says you cannot you have to be consistent. You cannot be consistent with an existing roof line. It has to be consistent with the setback, and so that variance, if we give him a variance, it would not be consistent with the current UDO.
Bill, what's your position?
I agree, the variance is not consistent with the ordinance, the spirit or purpose of it, because there was several reasons that the ordinance is now 7.5 feet in the side setback. And I don't see how this fits that, so it's not consistent.
And once again, for us to grant this variance, we have to have, in the case of the four of us here, unanimous agreement that this variance would meet all four tests.
Right.
As chair, let me just say that I appreciate the differences of opinion here, but on balance, I can't convince myself that all four tests are met. And so my belief is that we would be unable to grant this variance, particularly given the fact that we've identified some alternatives within which no variance would be required. Bill, your position on that?
I agree. That's what I was suggesting as well. That this could be, you could build a nice porch out there and not even be here for the variance.
Okay, your
Yeah, I
position?
agree. I agree.
Right.
I agree that could be a position, but for 2.5 feet, I was looking at the area and the ability of not having a post in front of his window as aesthetic. I can understand giving a variance to a non-conforming situation due to no action on Mr. Potts's part, because the rules change. And that's why some things get granted and some things don't. But I'm feeling that I'd like to see him be able to do this for everything that he's gone through. But to be perfectly be in line with the ordinance, then it's no.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, I feel for Mr. Potts. You have done everything that you possibly can to try and get into compliance here. But as the chair, I have to tell you that I honestly feel that we're not in a position to approve this variance given the rules for the state of North Carolina
Yeah.
and the town of Sunset Beach. And I hope that we have provided some reasonable alternatives. Ron, before we take a vote, is there anything that we may have missed here?
Yeah, a couple of things. Well, first of all, you will need a vote, as you just mentioned, but also, even though we have no one here that is to speak in favor or against this, or or providing the evidence, if you could at least acknowledge that for the record, so we have that. Like, given the opportunity, but no one is here. Does that make sense? Let's just acknowledge that there's no one here present to provide evidence, either in support or contrary to his request. If you don't mind making that
I
motion.
mean, I would tell you that the fact that we haven't had a bunch of neighbors coming here
Yep.
with placards yelling and screaming
Yeah.
tells me that in fact they are likely supportive of Mr. Potts. And once again, initially when I read through this, I was as well. But as I went through the facts as they're laid out and saw the alternatives here, I'm unable to convince myself. And I believe that the members of the board are similarly unable to determine that the rules by which we would grant a variance can be met.
Am I allowed to make one final statement or my opinion? I understand where you're coming from, but differences of during a build is always up there. This would be no different than you're rebuilding your kitchen or whatever. Someone comes in, will make a suggestion of what you want to do. Your vision is this, and they says, well, no, you don't really need to go there. You can just go there. And that's not what your vision was. My vision was to have a porch that went to the end of the house. The two contractors that I had come out there, that was their vision. They did not see any reason to make it shorter than that, only because of the existing Carolina room. As I said, my next door neighbor's house, and I'm sorry I don't have a picture of it, he has a back end of his house with a double door patio door coming out there onto a slab with nothing. If I had that exterior, I would be building a Carolina room going over several feet one way, several feet there. I would nowhere near be near the edge of the porch. I'm restricted because of the design and build of the original builder.
Correct.
All I'm trying to do is go to the edge of the property, not knowing that it was being restricted because of the backside. It's not, in my opinion, it's not a major, asking as far as just to go to the edge. 2.5 feet to make it aesthetically look correct, I think is definitely something that I think should be taken into consideration. Remember, this is my house, my kingdom where I live. I'm sure that if you were building stuff on your house, you would stand up and want to have it built the way you think it should look and should be built. I can't build it with that 2.5 foot setback. You may think it's an alternative and you should just do it. No, it's a major aesthetic appearance.
And once again, the reason that you have 4 members on this board is that there are differences of opinion. And once again, none of us are builders by trade.
Right.
We're not telling you what to do or what not to do, but we are telling you that within the flexibility that we have, we are unable to come to a consensus that the 4 conditions that need to be met to grant a variance can be met. And so clearly you get the sense that when we do have a vote, it is highly unlikely that we would be granting this variance. There is nothing personal here. We both live in this town. We all,
Right.
We're all going to live together and all that. And I understand your position, okay, from an aesthetic standpoint of view. But one of our obligations, just so you understand, is we are not in a position to create a precedent where we violate these rules and essentially send the town down a slippery slope by creating a precedent that is inappropriate. And I had 2.5 feet. I understand it's not an issue to you, but if we give you 2.5 feet, who's to say the next person doesn't ask for 3 or 4 or 5? And the question is how far you go down that slippery slope, sir.
Well, okay, that is a very broad interpretation of what you think could happen. And I don't want to be made the point that I'm the one who's starting the stone rolling down the hill.
Understand that.
As you pointed out, the change in the backset had nothing to do with me. Unfortunately, I'm affected by it, as is a lot of other homeowners in our development. Whether or not they end up, trying to build something and do it correctly and have to do a variance thing, that's very possible. As I said, I tried to do this the right way. The wrong way would have been no permit, just hire the people and get it done and move on. I don't think it's the right way to do it. The town has people that are very smart. They understand building codes. They understand what's required. I've already asked some of the building inspectors with the footings what I was going to need to do. I need their input. I'm not a builder. I inspected windows and patio doors and why they weren't performing and all that. That's where my expertise lied. But as I said, aesthetically, you may not feel that is a major issue, but it really is, because I pretty much assured that all 4 of you gentlemen would not allow that to happen to your property.
I'm bound by the laws of the town.
Yeah, I understand, I
As are
understand.
you, so.
Yeah,
Once
But,
again,
I don't-
We're not singling you out in any way.
no, but the comment of that you're starting the snowball effect where the next person may ask for 3 feet or something. Every house is in a different location. Every lot is different. The circumstances are all different. They have to be judged on each individual merit.
This is true.
And based on mine, it's great. It's 2.5 feet. If it was 12 feet, 10 feet, that'd be a different story. I wouldn't even be here. If I was asking for a back set, a movement of 5 feet or more, I said no. They're not going to go with it. But 2 feet, 2.5 feet, I didn't think that would be something that would break the camel's back. I really didn't.
Yeah, you have pursued this process precisely as we would have hoped. And, I'm just trying to be
I would
straight
just-
with you.
okay.
You have done all you could, and we're going to, within your capabilities, and we are going to do all that we can do as a board within our capabilities. I can assure you that had there been a fifth member here, I think it's still clear that the lay of the land is that we are unable to meet the 4 requirements to grant the variance. And so with all due respect, I would like to call the vote at this point in time. The motion would be to deny the variance as requested by Mr. Potts based on the facts that have been presented here and in his application. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Bill, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of denying this variance, please raise your hand by saying aye. Aye. Clearly, no one's opposed and there are no abstentions. I'm sorry that this is the outcome, sir.
That's okay.
We wish you well.
Yeah, no problem.
Nathan, I'll work on an order, try to get it done by the, I will work on an order
Okay.
For you to review and hopefully sign when I get it done. I am out the last week of February, so I hope to get it done before I leave for vacation next week. If not, it'll be the first part of March.
Good idea. Okay,
So,
thank you. I
I've
appreciate
taken
that.
some notes. I will
wonder if
also
this guy
probably
got it.
rewatch some of the discussion and also consult Kimberly.
Yeah. Wait a
Let's
minute.
let's
If he did
get
it-
back
if he did it before
recognizing the
2023,
importance of your time, folks. Let's get back to item 5, approval of the minutes. Kim has made some revisions of the minutes which are in your packet. The first item are the minutes of September 11th, 2024. Are there any changes, revisions suggested, or should we call the question?
Could I be added to the members present? Page
Oh,
1,
my Goodness, September 11th?
Yeah.
Or
page 1.
I apologize.
I apologize for missing that as
I
well.
totally missed that.
It was a quick catch.
Yeah, I mean, I know we have you on the 9th, but
You got me on the other one, but you
Yeah.
didn't have me on the first one.
okay, subject to adding Mr. Lucas. Are there any other observations?
I did not see anything.
I didn't see it.
Okay, I'd like to, subject to that change, recommend the approval of the September 11th, 2024 minutes as revised by Kim. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Greg. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Good. Let's move next to page 25 in your packet, which are the October 9th, 2024 minutes. I can tell you that we've had some discussion over whether the approval on page 25 and the denial on page 26 are accurate. I think Ron has acknowledged that those need to be switched around.
Yeah, I think and Kimberly, did you have some revised wording on that? Did you say? And I think what the confusion is as we exchanged emails earlier in the week, is you were presented an order to deny variance number 1. And you approved that order to deny. And so we want
Yes.
to make sure we just want to make sure that wording was correct. So you're correct in the variance itself was not approved, but the order to deny the variance was approved. It's very confusing. Apologize for that.
I don't find that confusing.
And then on the second item, variance 2024-02, the initial vote was to deny the order to approve. There was some discussion. We made some changes to the order, and ultimately you voted to approve that order.
So Kim, does the revision then say in variance 2024-01 to approve the denial of VAR 2024-01?
How did you reword it?
Or
Yeah,
just,
how'd you word it? That's the question.
approve and execute, what this says now is to approve and execute the order denying variance 2024-01 as presented. And I believe that that is absolutely accurate.
Yes.
Thank you, Kim.
Okay. Similarly, on the second page, it says that a motion was made to approve and execute the order granting the variance on 2024-02 as revised.
What, why does this start off with saying that there's a motion and seconded to deny the order granting a variance?
Because initially there were some, with the order, wording in the order itself, there was some disagreement with how the order was written.
The
And
way it
that's-
was written.
Yes, and that's so the initial amendment was to, or excuse me, initial vote was to deny it. Ultimately, we were all regrouped. We decided to move
I'm
forward.
not sure I
and
like the way
change.
this is
Yeah,
written.
so I think Bill's point, and I agree with him, is that the word deny should be amend. Right?
That would be
The
better.
motion was made by Vornum and seconded by Lucas to amend the order granting the variance. The board recessed, corrected the verbiage concerns after a pause and in-meeting corrections. Board recommended and reviewed an updated version, and a motion was made to approve and execute the order granting the variance.
Yeah, and I think the first piece there, that sentence was, again, the motion was to deny the order approving the agreement. So if you want to, however, if you
I think
prefer to
that
amend,
what he just said would work a
that's
lot
fine.
better.
If you take the word deny and make that amend, I
Amend.
think would be good.
that's fine. If that's your pleasure, that's fine. We're good with that.
Everybody follow that? I hope I made that clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's confusing, particularly when you're voting on those orders to approve or deny, and so it's apologize for that. It makes sense when we write them sometimes.
That's not a problem. Lisa, I know you're smirking. I would if I were you too. Okay, so given that change, can we a motion to approve the October 9th minutes?
Second or.
Thank you for the second, Bill. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving this amended October 9th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
There we go, that's good.
Thank you.
Okay. Next. Administrative item. It's appropriate for us to have a chair appointed and a vice chair appointed. And so I'd like to open the floor to discussion about that. If it serves the committee, I'm certainly willing to continue as chairman, and I'd be happy to step down if somebody else would like to take the helm.
Just so you guys know, the way the ordinance reads is that the chair is good for 1 year, but is also able to be reelected.
There we go. Any discussion and any volunteers?
I would reelect you as chair.
Yeah, I'd really like it. I don't know if that's the answer
Great.
you wanted.
Good. So we
Second,
have
third,
no mutiny. That's always a good thing.
second thing, yeah.
And we'll kill both of these in a single motion. Is there someone that is bold enough to want to become the vice chair?
All right, I'll do it.
interest at all.
Okay?
I think he would be great.
Second.
Okay. So the motion on the floor then is to reappoint Lawrence Hirschoff as chair and to appoint Bill Vornam as vice chair. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jay.
Mhm.
Any discussion? You can't believe the pay package. The perks are unbelievable.
Yeah, I understand. I'm used to it.
Good. With all that, can we have all those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Motion is approved. Okay, Ron, are there any other administrative items that we need to deal with?
Acknowledging that I did a bad job of letting you know of the meeting today. So just looking ahead, your next meeting is scheduled for March 12th. The deadline for applications was February 7th, which has passed, and I'm not aware of anything.
So it is highly unlikely that we would have a March 12th meeting.
Yeah.
But keep an eye on that calendar because I think Lisa would probably agree. Things are heating up a little bit in this town, aren't they?
Yeah, it's my fault. I try to be informative and let applicants know of their options, which includes appeals, variances, and so forth. So maybe that's to a fault, but I feel like everyone should have an opportunity to know what all their relief is when we're dealing with folks.
That's not a problem.
So,
I appreciate that, and I'm sorry I came down so hard.
No,
on you
you're
there.
good.
But my wife can't repeat what I said when I actually saw it in the Beacon.
But as we do not have an application for your March meeting, and the deadline has passed.
Right.
And I will let you know that we are changing software for the agenda and minutes, and you will automatically get an email when Kimberly distributes the packets now.
Great. That's right. And Kim, once again, thank you for putting all this together. And I'm glad we didn't need to have Grady this morning. Now, I am still concerned. I've spoken with Lisa about this. The cost to the town of hearing a variance request is clearly far more than $300. But we have an obligation to the town and to the state, and we will do that to the best of our ability. I thank you all for your service this morning. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Be good.